The briefing room on Station Terminus 7 smelled like a mixture of oil, ozone, and something Jinho couldn't quite identify. Probably the Corleans, he thought. The gelatinous beings always left a faint chemical scent wherever they gathered. He stood near the back of the crowded room, his toolkit resting against his leg, while dozens of alien maintenance workers filled the space with their various clicks, hisses, and burbling sounds. Chief Deho stood at the front, his insectoid form towering over most of the assembled crew. His compound eyes glittered under the harsh lighting as he gestured with 4 of his 6 arms at the holographic display floating above the briefing table. Red warning symbols pulsed across an entire section of the station schematic. Sector 12 is critical, Deho announced, his translator rendering his clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. The life support conduit has failed completely. We have maybe 18 hours before the entire sector becomes uninhabitable. After that, the cascade failure will spread to sectors 11 and 13. Jinho studied the display carefully. Sector 12 was massive, stretching across 3 levels of the station's industrial ring. The damage patterns suggested something had overloaded the primary systems, causing a chain reaction through the secondary and tertiary backups. It was the kind of repair that would normally require a full emergency response team working around the clock. We will divide into 3 teams, Deho continued. Team 1 takes Sector 12A. Team 2 handles 12B. Team 3 covers 12C. He paused, his antennae twitching. Each sector requires approximately 20 to 30 workers for adequate coverage. A Dramath engineer named Sunwoo raised one clawed hand. His reptilian features were set in what Jinho had learned to recognize as skepticism. Chief, we only have 47 crew members present. How do we cover 3 sectors effectively? Deho's mandibles clicked in what might have been frustration. We do our best with what we have. The station master has already. I'll take Sector 12C alone. The room fell silent. Every eye, lens, and sensory organ turned toward Jinho. He kept his expression neutral, meeting their stares calmly. Deho's translator remained silent for a moment, as if even the machine was surprised. Human Jinho. Perhaps I was unclear. Each sector requires 20 to 30 workers under normal circumstances, Jinho finished. I understand. But if we split our crew 3 ways, none of the teams will have enough members to work efficiently. Better to concentrate your workers in 2 sectors and let me handle the 3rd. A sound rippled through the room. It started as a low clicking from the Velcrin workers, then grew into hissing laughter from the Dramath, and finally bubbling pops from the Corleans. The noise built until the briefing room echoed with alien amusement. The human thinks he can do a 20-being job alone? One of the Velcrin workers chittered. Typical mammalian arrogance. Perhaps he doesn't understand numbers? A Dramath added, his translator managing to convey mockery despite the flat tone. Should we explain basic mathematics to him? And he would have an on. Maybe he plans to reproduce rapidly and create his own crew. This from a Corlean, which sent the room into fresh waves of laughter. Jinho didn't respond. He'd worked in deep space long enough to know that arguing was pointless. Words meant nothing out here. Only results mattered. He simply picked up his toolkit and waited for the laughter to die down. Deho raised 2 of his arms for silence. Human Jinho, I cannot, in good conscience, allow. Chief, with respect. We're wasting time. Jinho gestured at the display. 18 hours. Every minute we spend arguing is a minute lost. I know my capabilities. Let me work. The insectoid chief's antennae quivered. For a long moment, he studied Jinho with those multifaceted eyes. Finally, he clicked his mandibles. Very well. But when you fail, and you will fail, you will call for assistance immediately. Understood? Understood. Deho turned back to the display. Team 1, you have Sector 12A. Team 2, Sector 12B. The human takes 12C alone. Apparently. We begin in 10 minutes. As the crew dispersed to gather their equipment, Jinho heard the whispers and continued laughter. He caught fragments of conversation through various translators. Probably still be reading the instruction manual when the air runs out. Humans always think they're special. Should start a betting pool on how long before he quits. Jinho secured his toolkit straps across his chest and shoulders. The weight was familiar, comforting. He'd carried these tools through asteroid mining operations, deep space construction projects, and emergency repairs on colony ships. Each tool had a story. Each had saved his life at least once. He made his way to the transport tubes that would take him to Sector 12C. Behind him, the two official teams were organizing themselves with military precision, assigning roles and responsibilities. He heard Sun Wu's voice directing Team 2, already sounding confident and professional. The transport tube whisked Jinho through the station's infrastructure in seconds. When the doors opened, he stepped out into Sector 12C and immediately assessed the situation. It was worse than the briefing had suggested. Much worse. Coolant leaked from cracked pipes, creating puddles of fluorescent green liquid on the deck plates. Electrical conduits sparked and sputtered where their insulation had melted away. The air tasted sharp and metallic, and the temperature fluctuated wildly as broken environmental controls fought each other. Jinho activated his comm unit. He could already hear the other teams chattering away on the shared channel, coordinating their efforts with practiced efficiency. Someone made another joke about the human probably still figuring out which end of the wrench to use, followed by more clicking laughter. He muted his outgoing channel but left the incoming audio active. Better to hear what was happening with the other teams, even if they were just going to mock him. Jinho pulled out his scanner and began the diagnostic sweep. The display painted a grim picture, but not an impossible one. He'd seen worse. He'd fixed worse. He rolled his shoulders, cracked his knuckles, and got to work. The human was alone, just as they'd wanted, just as he'd chosen. For now, 3 hours into the repair, Jinho's uniform was soaked with sweat and coolant. His hands moved with mechanical precision, sealing breaches, rerouting power conduits, and bypassing damaged systems. The work was exactly as brutal as he'd expected. The first major problem had been the primary power junction. Half of its circuits had melted into a fused mass of metal and ceramic. Jinho had spent 40 minutes carefully cutting away the damaged components and installing bypass relays. It wasn't elegant, but it worked. Through his comm unit, he listened to the other teams making steady progress. Their coordination was impressive. Team 1 had already restored partial life support to Sector 12A. Team 2 was close behind, with Sun Wu directing workers like a conductor leading an orchestra. "Humans still alive over there?" someone asked on the general channel. Clicking laughter followed. "Probably sitting in a corner crying," another voice suggested. "Give him credit. He lasted 3 hours before giving up." "That's more than I expected from a mammal." Jinho ignored them. He was too busy tracing a coolant leak back to its source. The fluorescent green liquid had spread across an entire subsection, making the deck plates slippery and treacherous. His scanner indicated the leak originated somewhere behind a wall panel. But when he pried the panel open, he found the space behind it completely flooded. He spent the next hour pumping out coolant and patching 3 separate ruptures in the pipe network. His shoulders ached from working in cramped positions. His fingers were numb from the cold liquid. But slowly, steadily, the sector's systems began responding to his repairs. The environmental controls stabilized first. The wild temperature swings evened out into something merely uncomfortable instead of dangerous. Then the emergency lighting came back online, replacing the dim backup illumination with proper visibility. Jinho paused to drink water and check his progress on his datapad. He was behind schedule, but not catastrophically so. If he maintained this pace, he might actually finish within the 18-hour deadline. It would be close, though. Dolan. Trine. He was about to move on to the next damaged system when his scanner picked up something unexpected. A thermal signature. Multiple thermal signatures. Actually, coming from a section of Sector 12C that wasn't supposed to have any life support at all. Jinho frowned and adjusted the scanner's sensitivity. The readings were clear. Small heat sources, clustered together in what the station schematics showed as a collapsed maintenance tunnel. According to the official records, that tunnel had been sealed and abandoned months ago after a structural failure. But the readings didn't lie. Someone was in there. Jinho changed direction, following the scanner's guidance through a maze of damaged corridors. The destruction grew worse the deeper he went. Blast marks scarred the walls. Debris blocked several passages, forcing him to climb over or squeeze around obstacles. This section had clearly taken the worst of whatever had caused the initial failure. Finally, he reached the maintenance tunnel entrance, or what was left of it. The opening was completely buried under collapsed ceiling panels and twisted support beams. His scanner showed the thermal signatures were just beyond the debris, perhaps 3 meters in. "Hello?" Jinho called out. "Can anyone hear me?" For a moment, nothing. Then a small voice, high-pitched and frightened, responded in broken station common. "Help? Please help?" Jinho's jaw tightened. That was a child's voice. Maybe more than one child. He activated his comm unit, preparing to alert Chief Deho. His finger hovered over the transmit button. Then, he hesitated. Unauthorized residents. That's what these were. No one was supposed to be living in Sector 12. Anyone found residing in unapproved areas would face immediate deportation from the station. For many species, deportation meant death. Not all beings could afford transport elsewhere, and not all had homes to return to. Jinho lowered his hand from the comm unit. First, he needed to see the situation himself. He began clearing debris, working carefully to avoid causing further collapse. The support beams were unstable, groaning ominously with every piece he moved. His engineering training screamed warnings about structural integrity, but he kept going. Someone needed help. That was all that mattered. It took an hour of exhausting work before he created a small gap in the debris. Immediately, a furry face appeared in the opening. Large eyes stared at him, reflecting his work light like mirrors. "Please," a female voice said from deeper in the tunnel. "My children. Get them out." Jinho recognized the species now. Felkar. They were small, feline-like beings who often worked as technicians and crafters throughout the galaxy. This close, he could see 3 small cubs huddled behind the opening, with an adult Felkar lying on the ground behind them, one leg bent at an unnatural angle. "I'm Jinho," he said gently. "I'm going to help." "Can the cubs move on their own?" "Yes," the mother replied. "But I cannot. I am Hana. Please, take my children to safety. Leave me." "Not happening." Jinho widened the gap slightly. "Let's get the cubs out first. Then we'll work on extracting you." The 3 cubs crawled through the opening one by one. The eldest was barely knee-high to Jinho, with brown and white fur. The middle cub was solid gray. The smallest was black with white paws. Couldn't have been more than 4 or 5 in human years. They huddled together, staring up at Jinho with a mixture of fear and hope. "What are your names?" he asked. "I am Duri," the eldest said. "This is Minho and Bomi." He gestured to his siblings. "Okay. Duri, Minho, Bomi. I need you 3 to go down that corridor." Jinho pointed. "And wait for me there. Can you do that?" Duri shook his head. "We will not leave, Mama." "I'm not leaving your mama either," Jinho assured him. "But I need space to work. Please." The cubs exchanged glances. Finally, reluctantly, they moved where Jinho had indicated. But they didn't go far, and they kept looking back, anxiously. Jinho returned to the debris pile and began calculating. Hana's injury meant she couldn't crawl out like the cubs had. He needed to widen the opening significantly and stabilize the structure to prevent further collapse. That would take hours. Hours he didn't have if he wanted to complete the sector repairs on time. Through his comm, He heard Team 1 celebrating. They'd finished Sector 12A completely. Team 2 was maybe 2 hours from completion. Jinho looked at the debris, then at the cubs, then at his datapad, showing all the unfinished repairs scattered throughout Sector 12C. There was no way he could do both. Not alone. Not in time. He was about to accept defeat when little Bomi tugged on his pant leg. The smallest cub held up one of Jinho's tools that had fallen from his kit. The tiny hands moved, mimicking the twisting motion Jinho had been using to seal pipe connections. The cub wanted to help. Jinho stared at those small, earnest eyes. An impossible idea began forming in his mind. Jinho knelt down to Bomi's level. The small cub still held his tool, those large eyes watching him carefully. Behind Bomi, Duri and Minho had crept closer, clearly unwilling to leave despite his earlier instruction. "You want to help?" Jinho asked. Softly. Bomi nodded eagerly. Duri stepped forward, placing a protective paw on his younger sibling's shoulder. "We can help. We are good workers. Mama taught us." From inside the collapsed tunnel, Hana's weak voice called out. "No. It is too dangerous. They are only children." Jinho studied the 3 cubs. Their small size, their delicate paws, their sharp eyes. An idea that had seemed impossible moments ago suddenly didn't seem quite so crazy. He made a decision that would either save them all or prove he was as foolish as the alien crews believed. "Duri," he said. The eldest cub approached cautiously. Jinho pulled out a diagnostic tablet and showed him a simple schematic. "Do you know what this is?" Duri's eyes widened. "Connection points. For data cables." "Exactly." Jinho pointed to a junction box mounted low on the wall, designed for automated maintenance drones. "I need to reconnect the micro-wiring inside that box. But my fingers are too big. Can yours reach?" Duri looked at his own paws, then at the junction box. "Yes. I can do this. Show me." Jinho opened the junction box, revealing dozens of hair-thin wires dangling loose from their connection ports. He handed Duri a magnifying lens and talked him through the process. The cub's small paws proved perfect for the delicate work. Within minutes, connections that would have taken Jinho half an hour were complete. "Good," Jinho said, genuine praise in his voice. "Really good." Duri's tail swished with pride. Jinho turned to Minho. The gray cub had been watching carefully, studying every move Jinho made. "Minho, I need someone with good eyes. Someone who can spot small cracks or damage. Can you do that?" Minho nodded silently. Jinho led him to a section of plasma conduit that his scanner had flagged as potentially unstable. "Look at these pipes. Tell me if you see anything wrong." Minho leaned close, his eyes scanning the surface. After a moment, he pointed with one claw. "There. And there. Small cracks." Jinho checked with his scanner. Minho was right on both counts. The cracks were so hairline that Jinho had almost missed them himself. If they'd gone unrepaired, the conduit would have eventually ruptured, possibly causing an explosion. "You have sharp eyes," Jinho said. "Better than mine." Finally, he looked at little Bomi. The smallest cub was barely bigger than one of Jinho's toolboxes. "Bomi, I need someone small and brave. There are crawl spaces I cannot fit through. Service ducts where tools need to be delivered. Can you help with that?" Bomi's chest puffed up. "I believe you." Jinho showed Bomi a schematic of the station's service duct network. "See these passages? They're too small for me. But you could move through them easily." From the collapsed tunnel, Hana called out again. "Jinho, please. They are too young for this." Jinho walked back to the debris. He spoke through the gap, his voice gentle but firm. "Hana, I understand your fear. But I can't save you and repair the sector alone. If I don't finish the repairs in time, this entire section becomes uninhabitable. That includes the tunnel, where you're trapped. We all die." Silence from inside. "But if your cubs help me," Jinho continued, "we might have a chance." I will keep them safe. I promise you that. And while they help me work, I'll be stabilizing this tunnel piece by piece. When the repairs are done, I'll have the equipment and time to get you out properly. More silence. Then, quietly, they are all I have. I know. Jinho placed his palm against the debris, as close to Hana as he could get. I will protect them with my life. You have my word. A long pause. Finally, Hana spoke. Duri, Minho, Bomi, listen to Jinho. Do exactly as he says. Be careful. Yes, Mama, the three cubs said in unison. Jinho stood and addressed his new crew. All right. Here's how this works. We're a team now. That means we look out for each other. Duri, you handle any small connection work. Minho, you're my quality control. You spot problems before they become disasters. Bomi, you're my courier. You move through places I can't reach. The cubs nodded seriously. And nobody takes risks without checking with me first. Understood? Understood, they chorused. Jinho checked his datapad. They had maybe 12 hours left before the deadline. He had a sector full of damaged systems to repair, and 3 small cubs as his only help. The alien crews would be finishing their sectors soon, probably still making jokes about the stupid human who thought he could work alone. He looked down at Duri, Minho, and Bomi. They looked back up at him with trust and determination. Let's get to work, Jinho said. They started with the environmental systems. Jinho needed to restore full life support before he could tackle the more complex repairs. He showed the cubs how to read the diagnostic displays and explained what each color code meant. Duri proved invaluable immediately. A critical neural interface bundle had come loose inside a control panel. The bundle was buried deep in a nest of other cables, and Jinho's fingers couldn't reach it without disconnecting dozens of other systems first. Duri simply reached in and reconnected it directly. Minho caught 3 separate stress fractures in pipe joints that Jinho's scanner had missed. His sharp eyes spotted subtle color changes in the metal that indicated weakness. Each time, Jinho reinforced the joints before they could fail. Bomi crawled through a service duct carrying a plasma torch that Jinho needed to access a sealed compartment. The duct was barely 30 centimeters wide. An adult couldn't have made it through, but Bomi navigated it easily. As they worked, Jinho talked to them constantly. He explained what he was doing and why. He taught them the basic principles of station maintenance. The cubs absorbed everything, asking smart questions and making connections Jinho hadn't expected. Hours passed. The comm channel remained active, and Jinho listened to Team 2 finish their section. Sunwoo's voice came through. Professional and satisfied. Sector 12B is complete. All systems green. Chief, should we send a support team to help the human? There was clicking laughter in the background. Let him fail on his own, someone said. Chief Daeho's translated voice cut through the chatter. Team 2, stand by for now. We will give the human a little more time. Jinho muted the incoming channel. He didn't need the distraction. He focused on his work and his small crew. Duri looked up at him. They laugh at you. They do, Jinho agreed. Why? Because they think I can't do this. Minho tilted his head. Can you? Jinho smiled. We'll find out together, won't we? By the 10th hour, Jinho and the cubs had fallen into a perfect rhythm. They moved through Sector 12C like a single organism, each member knowing instinctively what the others needed. When Jinho approached a damaged control panel, Duri was already there with the right tools. When a pipe system needed inspection, Minho's sharp eyes scanned every centimeter before Jinho wasted time on unnecessary repairs. When equipment needed moving through tight spaces, Bomi was already crawling through the service ducts before Jinho finished explaining the task. They worked mostly in silence now. Communication reduced to simple gestures and nods. Jinho had learned to read the cub's body language. When Duri's tail drooped, he needed water. When Minho's ears flattened, he'd spotted something concerning. When Bomi's whiskers twitched, she was calculating whether she could fit through a particular gap. The breakthrough came with the primary plasma conduit, It was the heart of Sector 12C's power distribution, and it had been completely fried. Jinho had been dreading this repair, because it required accessing a junction point buried deep within the station's infrastructure. The junction was surrounded by a maze of smaller pipes and cables, making it nearly impossible to reach. But Bommy could reach it. Jinho walked her through the process 3 times, making sure she understood every step. Then he watched through a fiber optic camera as her small paws carefully disconnected the burned-out junction and installed the replacement. Her movements were slow and methodical, exactly as he'd taught her. When the junction clicked into place, Jinho let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Perfect. Come back now. Bommy emerged from the access hatch, covered in grease but grinning. Jinho high-fived her tiny paw. The comm channel suddenly activated. Jinho had forgotten he'd muted it hours ago. Chief Daeho's voice came through. Human Jinho. Respond, please. Jinho activated his transmitter. I'm here, Chief. Status report. Team 1 and Team 2 completed their sectors hours ago. We expected to hear from you before now. In the background, Jinho could hear the alien crews murmuring. He caught fragments. Probably dead in there. Told you a human couldn't. Waste of time. I'm still working, Chief, Jinho replied simply. Do you require assistance? Jinho looked at Duri, who was already preparing tools for their next task. At Minho, who was scanning a section of wall with focused intensity. At Bommy, who was studying a schematic on Jinho's datapad with her greasy paws. Negative, Chief. I have a crew. We're handling it. Confused clicking sounds came through the comm. A crew? What crew? I'll explain later. Jinho out. He closed the channel before Daeho could respond. There would be questions later. Certainly. But right now, he needed to focus. They tackled the remaining systems one by one. The atmospheric processors. The water recyclers. The emergency bulkheads. The gravity stabilizers. Each repair brought Sector 12C closer to full operation. All the while, Jinho worked on stabilizing the collapsed tunnel, where Hana remained trapped. Between other repairs, he carefully reinforced support beams and cleared debris. He talked to her regularly, keeping her updated on their progress and making sure she stayed conscious. Your children are amazing, he told her during one such check-in. I know, Hana replied weakly. They are my pride. When this is over, they deserve recognition for what they've done here. When this is over, we will likely be deported. We are not supposed to be here. Jinho was silent for a moment. Then, we'll see about that. With 4 hours remaining before the deadline, Jinho stood in front of the main control terminal and ran a comprehensive diagnostic. The display painted a picture of Sector 12C's status, system by system, 70% operational. Better than he'd dared hope, but not enough. The sector needed to reach 95% minimum to be considered safe. Duri tugged on his sleeve. What is wrong? We're close, but we need more time. And we're running out. Minho studied the terminal display. These systems here, they are marked yellow. What does that mean? It means they're functional, but not optimal. They need calibration and fine-tuning. Can we help? Jinho looked at the long list of yellow-marked systems. Calibration was tedious work, requiring patience and attention to detail. It was also relatively safe, nothing that could explode or cause injury if done wrong, just time-consuming. Yes, he said. Yes, you can. He split them up. Duri took the power distribution calibrations. Minho handled the sensor alignments. Bommy worked on the atmospheric mixture balances. Jinho supervised all 3, while simultaneously tackling the more dangerous repairs himself. They worked faster than should have been possible. What would have taken a full team hours took them minutes. Duri's small paws could manipulate calibration controls with precision that even expensive robotic systems couldn't match. Minho's sharp eyes could detect the subtle indicators that showed perfect alignment. Bommy could access adjustment panels that were designed to be unreachable during normal operations. The yellow indicators on the terminal began turning green. 1, by one. System by system. 2 hours before deadline, Jinho completed the final critical repair. The main power junction, completely rebuilt and tested. He activated it and held his breath. Power surged through Sector 12C. Lights flickered on throughout the entire section. The atmospheric processors hummed to life. The gravity stabilizers engaged with a barely audible whine. Jinho checked the terminal. 92% operational. Still short of the requirement. 1 hour before deadline. 94%. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 30 minutes. 96%. The cubs worked without stopping. Their small faces set in determination. They were exhausted. Jinho could see it. But they pushed through, driven by something beyond themselves. 15 minutes before deadline, Jinho made the final connection on the emergency bulkhead system. He walked back to the main terminal. The cubs, trailing behind him. He activated the comprehensive diagnostic one last time. The terminal display cycled through every system in Sector 12C. Red indicators turned yellow. Yellow indicators turned green. The progress bar climbed steadily. And then it stopped. 100%. Every system, every backup, every safety measure. All operational. All optimal. Perfect. Jinho stared at the display, almost not believing it. The cubs pressed close to him, looking up at the terminal. "Did we do it?" Bomi asked in a small voice. Jinho lifted his comm unit with a shaking hand. "Chief Daeho, this is Jinho. Sector 12C is complete. All systems are green. Silence on the other end. Then, repeat that, please. Sector 12C is fully operational. Ready for inspection." More silence. Then, sounds of confusion. Clicking and hissing in various alien languages. "That is not possible," Daeho finally said. "Check your board, Chief." A pause. Then Daeho's voice, stunned even through the flat translation. "Station Master, we have confirmation. All 3 sectors of Sector 12 are now operational. The crisis is resolved. Number 5. Number 5. Cheering erupted in the background, dozens of alien voices celebrating. Jinho looked down at the cubs. They looked back up at him with tired but triumphant expressions. "We did it," he said. "We did it." They agreed. Now came the hard part, getting Hana out, and explaining to the station authorities why there were unauthorized residents living in a maintenance tunnel. Jinho activated his comm one more time. "Chief, I need you to come to Sector 12. See. There's something you need to see." The transport tube doors opened and the entire maintenance crew poured into Sector 12C. Chief Daeho led the group, his compound eyes scanning the pristine corridor in disbelief. Behind him came Sunwoo and the other Dramath engineers, the Corlean specialists, and dozens of Velcrin workers. They'd all come to see the impossible sector. The lights were bright and steady. The air was clean and properly temperature-controlled. The deck plates were clear of debris. Every indicator panel glowed green. It looked better than it had before the catastrophic failure. "Impossible," Sunwoo muttered, running a clawed hand along a perfectly sealed pipe joint. "This sector was worse than both of ours combined." The crew spread out, inspecting the repairs with growing amazement. They found the rebuilt power junction, the replaced plasma conduits, the recalibrated environmental systems. Every repair was solid, professional, and complete. "Where is the human?" Daeho demanded. "Here, Chief." The crowd parted. Jinho emerged from a side corridor, covered in grease and coolant, his face exhausted but calm. Behind him came 3 small shapes. The alien crews fell silent as they saw Duri, Minho, and Bomi. The cubs walked close to Jinho, their fur matted with dirt and their paws black with grime. They looked terrified of the crowd of large aliens, but they stayed close to the human. Daeho's antennae quivered in confusion. "My crew," Jinho said simply. "You said you had a crew." But I thought you were joking, or delirious. Deho approached slowly, studying the cubs. These are Felkar. Children. Where did they come from? From there. Jinho pointed to the collapsed maintenance tunnel entrance. There's one more inside. Their mother, Hana. She's injured. I need help extracting her safely. The clicking sounds that rippled through the crowd were no longer laughter. They were shock and concern. Unauthorized residents. Deho said quietly. His translator couldn't convey emotion, but his body language showed conflict. I should report this immediately. They will be deported. Deho. Access. Deho. No. The word came not from Jinho, but from Duri. The small cub stepped forward, his voice shaking but determined. We helped. We fixed this place. We are not useless. Minho joined his brother. We did important work. Jinho showed us. Little Bomi, the smallest and quietest, spoke last. The alien crews shifted uncomfortably. Some of them had children of their own. All of them understood what deportation meant for beings without resources or connections. Sunwoo stepped forward. The large Dromoth engineer towered over the cubs, but he knelt down to their level. What work did you do? Duri pointed to a nearby junction box. I connected the small wires inside. My paws fit where others could not. Minho indicated a section of pipe. I found cracks before they broke. My eyes see better than scanners. Bomi gestured toward a service duct. I carried tools through the small spaces. I can go where adults cannot. Sunwoo looked at Jinho. Is this true? Every word, Jinho confirmed. Those junction boxes were impossible for my fingers to reach. I would have had to dismantle half the systems just to access them. Duri reconnected them directly. Minho caught stress fractures that my scanner missed. They would have caused explosions eventually. And Bomi crawled through service ducts to reach areas I couldn't access without tearing through walls. He paused, looking around at all the assembled aliens. These cubs did work that none of you could have done. Not because you're not skilled, but because sometimes the job needs someone small and precise. Without them, this sector would still be a disaster zone. Deho clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Show me. Duri led the chief to one of the junction boxes he'd worked on. With Jinho's permission, he opened it and demonstrated how he could reach deep into the nest of micro-wiring. Deho tried to reach the same connections with his smaller manipulator arms and couldn't even come close. Minho showed the chief 3 different stress fractures he'd identified. Sunwoo ran his own scanner over them and confirmed they were real. Despite being nearly invisible, Bomi crawled into one of the service ducts while everyone watched through the access hatches. She moved through the narrow passage with ease, reaching a critical junction that the schematics showed as accessible only by complete system disassembly. When the demonstrations were complete, the maintenance crews were silent. They looked at the cubs with new understanding. These weren't just children. They were workers who had accomplished something remarkable. Even so, Deho said slowly, they are unauthorized. The rules are clear. Then change the rules. Everyone turned to look at Sunwoo. The Dromoth engineer stood tall, his reptilian features set in determination. These Felkar saved Sector 12C, Sunwoo continued. They performed essential maintenance work that no one else could do. That makes them valuable to this station. The station master values efficiency and capability above all else. I will testify to their contribution personally. Other voices joined his. A Corlean specialist burbled agreement. Several Velcrin workers clicked their support. Even some who had mocked Jinho earlier now spoke up for the cubs. Chief Deho's antennae waved in a pattern that might have been resignation or relief. Very well. I will present this case to the station master. But first, we must extract the mother safely. The crew mobilized immediately. With their combined strength and equipment, they stabilized the tunnel and carefully excavated Hana within an hour. The medical team was waiting, and they rushed her to the station's hospital for treatment of her broken leg. The cubs wanted to go with her, but Hana insisted they stay to see the resolution of their case. "You earned this," she told them. "See it through." 2 hours later, the entire group stood in the station master's office. The station master was a massive Velcrin elder named Kyung-soo. His compound eyes clouded with age, but his mind still sharp. Unprecedented situation. Kyung-soo clicked, his translator rendering the words with unusual clarity. Unauthorized residents who performed valuable service. Difficult case. Daeho presented the facts methodically. The severity of the damage. The timeline. The repairs completed. The crucial role the cubs played. Kyung-soo listened without interruption. Then he turned his attention to Jinho. "Human. You vouched for these children. You risked your life and reputation. Why?" Jinho met the station master's multifaceted gaze steadily. "Because they needed help. And because they could help me. That's how things should work, isn't it? We help each other. Simple philosophy. The best ones usually are." Kyung-soo's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. He turned to the cubs. "Young ones, you performed valuable work. However, you cannot simply live in abandoned tunnels. This is dangerous and illegal." The cubs' ears drooped. But then Kyung-soo continued. "Therefore, I am granting you official resident status. You will be assigned proper living quarters. Additionally, I am creating a new position. Micro-maintenance specialists. You three will be the first members of this team. You will be paid standard junior technician wages and receive proper training." The cub's eyes went wide. Duri found his voice first. "We can stay? With Mama? You can stay. With your mother, who will also receive resident status and employment once she recovers from her injury." Bomi burst into happy chirps. Minho's tail swished excitedly. Duri simply stood there, tears forming in his large eyes. Kyung-soo turned back to Jinho. "Human, you showed remarkable skill and judgment. The station would benefit from your continued presence. I am offering you a permanent position as Chief of Special Projects." Jinho blinked in surprise. "Chief? You earned it by doing what others claimed was impossible. Will you accept?" Jinho looked down at the cubs, who were looking up at him with hope and affection. He thought about his life moving from station to station, never staying anywhere long. Maybe it was time to put down roots. "I accept," he said. The office erupted in clicking, hissing, and burbling sounds. This time, they were sounds of celebration. As the group filed out of the office, Sunwoo approached Jinho. The large Dramoth extended a clawed hand. "I owe you an apology. We all do. We mocked you for thinking you could work alone. We were wrong." Jinho shook the offered hand. "You weren't entirely wrong. I couldn't have done it alone, but you found a way anyway. That is the human gift, I think. Adaptation. Making the impossible possible." Sunwoo paused. "I hope you will teach us more of your methods. Anyway, I'd be happy to." Over the following weeks, word spread throughout Station Terminus 7 about the human and the cubs. The story became legend, told and retold in a dozen languages. The maintenance crews who had mocked Jinho now sought his advice and expertise. The micro-maintenance specialist program expanded. Other small species joined, finding employment in roles that had never existed before. The station became more efficient as leaders realized that different problems required different solutions and different sizes of workers. Jinho took his role as Chief of Special Projects seriously. He implemented new training programs, improved safety protocols, and encouraged cooperation between species that had previously worked in isolation. But his favorite time was still the hours spent with Duri, Minho, and Bomi, teaching them advanced maintenance techniques. They were brilliant students, soaking up knowledge like sponges. Hana, recovered from her injury, often joined these sessions, her pride in her children evident. One day, several months after the incident, Jinho found all 3 cubs waiting at his workshop entrance. They stood at attention, their small faces serious. Jinho, Duri said formally, we have been practicing something. May we show you? Of course. They led him to a section of the station they'd been assigned to maintain. It was a minor repair, just a faulty power coupling. Together, working with perfect coordination, they diagnosed the problem, fabricated a replacement part, and completed the repair in less than 20 minutes. It was flawless work. We did this alone, Minho said proudly. Like you taught us. No, Bomi corrected. Not alone. Together. Like you taught us. Jinho felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the station's temperature controls. You're right. Together is always better. As they walked back through the station's corridors, Jinho reflected on how much had changed. He'd come to Station Terminus 7 expecting mockery and isolation. Instead, he'd found family. Behind him, the 3 cubs chattered excitedly about their next project. Around him, the station hummed with life and activity. Ahead of him, countless repairs and challenges awaited, but he wasn't worried. Because he'd learned the most important lesson of all: no one truly works alone. You just have to find the right crew.